Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Crimson and in today's video we are going to be continuing. This is going to be part 3 of the Halo, the Art of Building Worlds art book. So where we left off last time was right at the start of the section about the flood. So we are going to jump right ahead. This intro is going to be quick. However, before we dive into the flood, I had said in part 2 that I was going to look through some of my other Halo books to see if there were any info about the prophets. And lo and behold, there is. So we are going to quickly cover that, as I feel that the prophets are an integral part of the Covenant species, and especially probably the most important, if not the elites. So we are quickly going to cover that, and then we are going to continue on with this book and dive into the flood infestation. So the book that we are going to be citing this information from is the Halo Encyclopedia, the Definite Guide to the Halo Universe, with a foreword by Frank O'Connor. Now, I am going to be covering this book in its entirety in a later date. However, this book does have lots of information on the prophets, so I wanted to just cover that since we spent time on all of the other races, or most of the other races of the Covenant. And quick little fun fact, this is the very first art book that I ever got. I got this book when I was about 11 and I adored it. This is what made me fall in love with art books. I loved this book so much that when I was in primary school, because I was and still am a loner, during lunch and recess, instead of playing or anything, I would sit in a corner and read this book. I have probably read this book about 40 times, back to front. I love it so much. So let's just quickly read about the prophets, and then we can get back to the Art of Building Worlds and the flood. So the San Shium, otherwise known as the prophets. So there's a lot of text here, so we are just going to be reading that. There is not any concept art of the San Shium. However, I do have a little bit of lower tidbits and fun facts that I will let you guys know after we read this. So I apologize if I stutter because there is a lot of texts. So, prophets and humankind. The prophets are the architect of the Covenant's holy war against the human race, which began after a forerunner oracle revealed the uncertain power connection between humanity and the forerunners. That forerunner oracle was mendicant bias. Sensing that this revelation could threaten both the existence of the Covenant as well as their own personal power, the prophet hierarchs decided to conceal this information and eliminate humanity and the threat they posed. Now, what does that mean? Essentially, the whole religion of the Covenant is that they are the rightful inheritors of the Forerunner legacy, and that they alone are entitled to it and the chosen successors to the Forerunners. However, when the hierarchs, the prophets of truth, mercy, and regret, were talking to mendicant bias, mendicant bias essentially told them that no, that humanity is not just the inheritor of the Forerunner and the mantle, but are forerunners themselves, because this was before the retcon, when humans were forerunners, and I fully believe that humans are forerunners. I will argue to death in the comments about that. So the three hierarchs realized that this was a threat, not just to their entire religion and their civilization, which is thousands of years old, but their personal power. So they decided rather to inform the Covenant about this and say, hey, we made a mistake, to declare that the Forerunners wanted, or the Forerunners hated humanity and wanted them wiped out. And since the Covenant are the inheritors, they need to enact the Forerunners' will and wipe out humanity. So the hierarchs, I won't go into too much detail here, but the hierarchs are essentially the leaders of the Covenant. They are the highest ranking members of the whole Covenant religion. There are three hierarchs: the prophets of truth, the prophets of regret, and the prophets of mercy. This is Truth here as he appears in Halo 3. Santium culture. The Santium homeworld was split by a civil war between the Stoics, a faction opposed to any manipulation or study of Holy Forerunner relics, which is very similar to what the Sangheli originally believed, and the Reformatists, who felt the Forerunner relics were meant to be transformed into usable technologies. This internal strife led to the Reformatists to eventually leave their homeworld behind. In 648 BCE, the Santium homeworld was destroyed when its orbital star went supernova. At that point, High Charity became the homeworld of the Santium. Their breeding and their cultural interactions are controlled carefully by a strict bureaucracy that ensures genetic diversity is maintained. So, while the elites are the military arm of the Covenant, and the grunts are the manual labor of the Covenant, and the jackals are a little bit of everything. They're a little bit manual labor, they're a little bit warrior, they're a little bit mercenary. The prophets are the religious arm of the Covenant, and the second most powerful, if not the most powerful, tied with the elites. The Covenant was initially formed between the Santium and the Sangheli, so they were the founding species of the Covenant. Now, little bit of a fun bit of information about the prophets, and then we'll move back to the Art of Building Worlds book. So, in Halo Combat Evolved, the initial plan for the prophets was they were going to be a type of elite or Sangheli. But rather than being warriors, they were going to be priests, but they were still going to be Sangheli. However, this ended up getting cut from the final game. And then when Halo 2 started development and they had a lot more resources to work with and a lot higher budget, Bungie decided to make the prophets their very own species, and thus the Santium came into existence, which I think is amazing, and I'm so glad that happened. I think having a priest tier of elites being, since the elites are the warriors, would have been kind of odd. So having two different species, one being these kind of softer, very decadent, as you can see, by their robes, by their chairs, by their crowns, species that runs the ecclesiarchal aspect of the Covenant, while the Sangheli, the warrior, much more militant, much more athletic and strong race, deals with all militant matters of the Covenant. Also, just a little fun fact here, it says data file, the adult male of a Santium standing up, we never really see them standing up as they're always in their little grab chairs, is 7 feet 3 inches, or 2.21 meters. Height, adult male, weight, adult male, 200 pounds, 91 kilograms. So, a adult prophet is much, much taller than me, and about 45 kilograms heavier than I am. And they do not really look it. They look very stringy and saggy and everything, but no, these guys are pretty dense, in more ways than one, if you know what I mean. So I just thought that I wanted to cover this since we had mentioned all the other races. So anyway, let's get back to the art of building worlds and our favorite parasite, the Flood. Okay, here we are. Now, before we go into and start digging into the Flood, one thing which you guys might find funny about me, I have a fear of parasites. I know there is a term for it, but I don't know what the term is, but I have a massive fear of parasites. And this originated from the Flood, because I played Halo Combat Evolved 2 and 3 way too young, and the infection from Flood absolutely terrified me. And especially in Halo 3, seeing how they can infect living soldiers and seeing them transform, it's made me afraid of parasites in general. So, a game has effective horror when it gives you a real world phobia. And don't get me wrong, 343, or the level 343 Guilty Spark in Halo Combat Evolved is an absolute horror mission. It is straight out of a horror game. So with that embarrassing fun fact about Crimson out of the way, let's continue, and feel free to make fun of me in the comments and let me know, what was your reaction to the Flood when you first saw them? Were you old enough to realize that it was just a game, or were you a bit too young? I was 7 the first time I encountered the Flood. So, yeah. Nothing like a little bit of trauma dumping in a Halo Artbook video, right? Okie dokie, let's move on. So here we have a picture from what looks to be Halo Wars. These two Flood forms are featured in the Halo Wars Awakening the Nightmare DLC. They are a mixture between like a carrier form, but they have massive tendrils that can hook onto targets. This Flood has this Marine by the throat with his tentacle. We have a Marine here rushing in. We have a Marine here, or that actually might be a Spartan, I can't tell, gunning down some Flood in the background with a turret, looking on, watching as these two guys kill his squad mates. So, File .001, a threat to all living things. They are the ultimate threat, a force that brought down one civilization and threatens to bring down our own. The Flood are a virulent, parasitic species that takes over their hosts, holding the power to turn armies against each other and consume all sentient life in the universe. The threat of the Flood overshadows the human Covenant war in Halo, and the Ringworlds themselves are the solution to the problem they pose. They are they're also responsible for the three-way fights that marked out the latter stages of Halo Combat Evolved. That's what gave me nightmares. With the player able to slip between the battles that raged between the Infected and the Covenant forces across Installation 04. Again, very similar to the Great Schism missions in Halo 2, you were able to watch the Covenant and the Flood forces fight it out on Legendary, and then pick off the survivors. So, as the shipmaster, Artas Vadum, I always mess up his name, even though he's like my favorite character in Halo, says in Halo 3, one single Flood spore can end a species, which is true. I know they couldn't do it for gameplay purposes, but I really wish Halo spore or the Flood spores had an impact in the game. They have an impact in the books, but I wish there was some kind of method around that, because people are just able to breathe in Flood spores in the game and, you know, walk it off, whereas if a single spore enters your body, you're done. These things are terrifying, man. Okay, so file .002, the Flood. The Flood are a gruesome sight, so it's perhaps no surprise that their inspiration was fittingly grisly. The references I found most useful when designing the Flood were old and rotten fruits and vegetables, reveals artist Rob McLee. However, an early inspiration for the carrier form was my cousin's infected thumb, drawn from memory. That is a cool piece of information. Also, speaking of the carrier forms, since we are seeing them here, carrier forms are combat forms that sustained too much damage in combat. So they were damaged too heavily to function as, to continue to function as combat forms. So that they then become carrier forms. We see two different versions here. This one has a much more rigid design, whereas this one has a much more sack-like appearance. This is what I was talking about. So these are two combat forms. This one is a human, and this one is a Sangheili. You can see the heads are twisted. The Sangheili head is essentially bent back twisted around 180 degrees. So if you look, they have sustained so much damage. You know, they're missing their arms. So they are in the process of turning into carrier forms, as you can see with the bulge starting to appear on their back. And here we have the Flood carrier form that we see in game. Now, what do the Flood carrier form do? The Flood carrier form carry infection forms within them. So they get close to you, they explode, and then you have about 15 infection forms that rush you. And yeah, it's on any difficulty about other than legendary, infection forms are essentially a non-issue, but on legendary those things can kill you real quick. And whenever I play any mission in Halo 3 and with any Flood, I always go out of my way to save all the Marines and all the Sangheili, just because, you know, I wouldn't wish that transformation on anyone. If you have seen the animations from Halo 3, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is not pretty. Moving on from the walking tumors, here we have some more depictions of some Flood forms. So here is some variations of the infection form types. This one here is the infection form in Halo 3. This one looks very similar to the infection form in Halo 2. And this one looks very similar to the infection form in Halo CE. These three, however, are a kind of mix between all of them. However, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, sorry, these three are not actually featured in any games. And these are very, very interesting. So these flood forms do not appear in any of the Halo games. They look like flood-infected animals, which is very, very cool because one, the flood do use animals as combat forms in the lore, and also they use them for biomass. So for example, an infected wolf or an infected bear would be used as a combat form, whereas something like an infected rabbit or an infected deer would be used for biomass, which is really, really cool. Here is the versions of some combat forms. So here is a human combat form. As you can see, his hand is all mangled, his feet are twisted, there's a bone sticking out of his foot there with tendrils here. The infection form here appears to be bursting out of his collarbone with his head completely twisted. He is holding a magnum here. This actually looks very similar to the pistol featured in Halo ODST. And this one is a Sanghili. So we can't see what happened to his feet because he still has his foot armor on. His hands, while definitely distorted and elongated, still look very similar to the Sanghili hands, and some tendrils or claws sticking out here. This is very necromorph-esque, I think, from the Dead Space series. This combat form is sticking out of his chest right here, with his head completely twisted over. So a little bit of just a fun fact or a lore tidbit about the Flood is any sentient species that the Flood infect because they are a hive mind, any skills or knowledge or information that individual had, once they are infected, all of the Flood hive mind use. So I'll just give you guys an example. If the Flood didn't know how to drive a warthog, and then they infected a Marine that knew how to drive a warthog, even though they just infected one Marine with that skill, because it's a hive mind, now every Flood combat form knows how to drive a warthog. That's why the Flood try and prioritize high-value targets, and that's why they go after Captain Keyes in Halo Combat Evolved, because he is a fleet admiral. He knows how to pilot a ship. He knows valuable information such as the location of Earth and many other human colonies and human worlds. So they wanted to get that information from him. And if you have read the novelization of Halo Combat Evolved, which I would actually really recommend even if you have played Halo Combat Evolved to death like I have, it sheds some real insight on that and the horrors that go into what it's actually like to be infected by the Flood. Anyway, let's move on. That's enough lore for now. Here is another marine that has been infected. He has the kind of tendrils. These are more claws, really. Like, these I would classify as tendrils, whereas this man's arm and this Sangheli's arm have claws on them. And the flood infection form has essentially taken root in his neck and has pushed his head all the way down. Now, this is more about the development of the flood, not really about the flood itself, so we're just going to skip this in an attempt to keep moving along. So, here are some pictures of some flood that are attacking some installations and some infrastructure and vehicles. This looks like this is taking place during the mission Floodgate in Halo 3, and I'm judging that's the case based on this thing up here that says Floodgate. So I'll read this just because it's interesting. I just gotta move the book a little bit closer to me, sorry. So, file point 004, Floodgate. These early concepts for the Halo 3 mission Floodgate, in which the flood infests the town of Voi in Africa, gives some impressions of how Halo's world is visualized before any polygons are committed. It's like a blue sky inspirational kick-off painting. Very easy on the project to help visualization and inspire people for the sequence itself, since the game's engine was in a primitive state at the time. I'll leave it off there just because it goes into more details about Frank O'Connor and his designs and stuff. It's not really about the flood. Okay, moving on. Flood purebred forms. Now, what is a flood purebred form? The flood are parasites, and they infect any creature. However, they do tend to prioritize sentient beings. However, the flood create their own forms that are pure flood, built from biomass. That's what I was talking about earlier with those animals, how they go into the biomass. And they are very, very powerful and come in many shapes, many sizes, and are extremely, extremely deadly. If you have played Halo 3 on Legendary, you know that the floods, I don't know what their actual name is, but the flood pure form that are the sniper ones are a pain. So let's read what it says. There was a clear methodology that dictated what the flood infected would look like, but when it came to the pure blood forms, it wasn't quite so simple. I think ultimately we tried to do too much, admits Shi K. Wang. One form that transforms 3 times to a different size had totally different functions and was probably more than necessary. I'm going to go ahead and disagree. I think it was totally necessary. It adds another level of horror to the flood that it's like they don't even need hosts necessarily, that if they have enough biomass they can just create their own soldiers. But yeah, this just goes again more into the detail of development. But so this is the version that I was talking about, these sniper forms, this one and this one. These ones appear in Halo 3. Actually, all of these only appear in Halo 3. This one looks like one of the sniper forms that is mid-transformation. This version here, I'm not exactly sure what this is. And then these are the flood tank forms, which are the brutes of the Covenant form, or the flood's pure forms. And when I say brutes, I don't mean Jirohane, I mean brutes as in like the muscle of the flood pure forms. And here it's just a size comparison between one of them compared to a Spartan. I'm assuming this is Master Chief, but all Spartans are, 7 feet tall or higher. One thing about the pure forms, which is terrifying, is they can all transform into all 3 different variations. So in Halo 3, there's 3 forms. You have the Crawler, which is a kind of like crab-looking flood form. We have the Sniper forms, which are here. I wish I knew what these were called. I apologize. Someone's probably screaming at me as they're watching this. And the tank forms. So they can adapt and they can change. So if the, for example, if the Crawler form realizes that, he's in danger close up, he can just leap up onto a rooftop, transform into this thing, and then snipe you. And then if you get too close to this guy underneath him, he can then transform into a tank form and drop down on you and slap you into a wall so hard every bone in your body breaks, which is really, really, really cool. Here are some more pure forms. I don't even know what I almost said. I am very tired recording this. I don't know if you guys can tell. These forms do not appear in the game. I do like this guy's kind of like pickaxe looking appendage. Again, these look very similar to the necromorphs from the game Dead Space. The Flood and the necromorphs share a lot in common in terms of their design. But personally, I think the Flood are cooler, but maybe that's just because I have a Halo bias. Now, the real head honcho of the Flood, the gravemind. So, file 0.006, gravemind. The gravemind provides a disturbing moment upon its discovery in Halo 2. Having previously thought that the Flood is a mindless virus, the discovery of in a deeply poetic manner. Also, the gravemind, it doesn't say this here, it just says deeply poetic, but the gravemind rhymes all of his words, which is, pretty cool. Here's a picture of him in Halo 2. This is the Halo 2 gravemind holding, I think that's the Arbiter based on his feet. So, what is a gravemind? The gravemind comes to be when enough biomass is collected and all of the intellect in every single sentient life form that they infect all contributes and goes into the gravemind. So the gravemind is a beyond intelligent being, almost to the point of being omnipotent, because there's thousands upon thousands of people infected, millions, billions, and all of their intellect, all of their knowledge goes into the gravemind. So he is not just intimidating and not just extremely deadly, but is so intelligent. Graveminds are so intelligent, in fact, that Mendicant Bias, who I mentioned during the Prophet section at the beginning of the video, was a Forerunner AI designed to combat the Flood. However, due to circumstances, he ended up being trapped on a ship that had been overtaken by the Flood and the Gravemind. And through 7 years of just talking to the Gravemind, the Gravemind was able to turn Mendicant Bias against the Forerunners and started to fight for the Flood. Keep in mind, Mendicant Bias was the most powerful AI ever made, period. Not to mention the fact that he was made by the Forerunners. and two, he's an AI, so it's not like, having a conversation with an organic being that you can, sway his mind. He literally overrode all of his programming, literally just by talking to him for 7 years. I believe it's 7 years. I might be wrong about that. If I am, I apologize. But that just goes to show how deadly these things are, not just in their physical might, but what they're able to do with their intellect. And that's what happens to Cortana. She gets infected by the logic plague. At the end of Halo 2, she is left in High Charity, which is overtaken by the Flood. And at the end of Halo 2, we see the Gravemind start to initiate a conversation with Cortana. And then in Halo 3, during the mission Cortana, everyone's favorite mission in Halo 3, I love that mission, especially on Lasso. It's so much fun. If you have a copy of Halo 3, do yourself a favor and play the mission Cortana on Lasso, and I can guarantee it's the most fun you'll ever have. But back to being serious, just in that short amount of time, Cortana is on the verge of breaking completely to the Gravemind, and only a few months had passed between the end of Halo 3 and when Chief rescues her. So it took him 7 years to convert mendicant bias, and in just a few months, he almost broke Cortana, who is the most advanced smart AI that humanity has, which is terrifying. Here is an amazing picture. Most of the art in these books I have seen online, just because I'm really invested in the Halo community. However, I have not seen this one, and this one is amazing. So we have the Master Chief here staring up at a gravemind. You can see the kind of glow here. I'm not really sure what this is, but this is an amazing piece of artwork. Last thing about the gravemind before we move on. Captain Keyes in Halo Combat Evolved, when we meet him and he is in that kind of massive sack that the Flood have made, the Flood was starting to build a proto-gravemind, which is like the infant stage of a gravemind. And they wanted Captain Keyes because his knowledge would help the creation of a gravemind by a great deal, and that's why Chief kills Keyes by punching him in the face and taking his neural implants. So yeah, these things are no joke. Here we are. So I'll read what it says first before we look at some of the art. File point 007. Gotta move the book a bit closer, sorry. File point 007, infected. Panels show the storyboard for the Flood's descent into Voy, as described by artist R. Lee Wilson. So here we have some kind of panels showing the state of the Flood outbreak in Voy. So this is at the end of the mission, where we fight our way through the Voy construction yard and end by destroying the anti-air cannon. Once the anti-air cannon is destroyed, a Flood-controlled Covenant cruiser jumps out of slip space and crashes. And, there's the famous line where Arbiter sees the ship and he's like, "What is it, more brutes?" And Chief just looks and he's like, "No, worse." So we can see here, so it's kind of hard to make out, you might not be able to see it. So we start with Chief looking through a sniper rifle scope, and you can see the slip space portal here and the ship that has come out of it. Chief then zooms in on his scope and notices something is very, very wrong with this ship. The ship then turns and flies right over Chief, giving both him and the Arbiter a full view of what it is. And at this point, they know, oh my god, the Flood are on Earth. And then the ship crashes, and a massive cloud of flood spores erupts from the crashed ship. And then here is Chief fighting his way through in the mission Floodgate. I'm assuming that this is what this is, just because it looks very familiar. This looks like the very end of Floodgate, before you climb in to part of the destroyed Covenant ship, which is very cool. Floodgate is also a really cool mission because it is the first time in Halo and in Halo 3 where we fight alongside the elites. Halfway through the mission, the shipmaster, Artis Vadum, who we mentioned earlier, brings his carrier over Chief and Arbiter's location, and he's like, this is the carrier, Spirit of Intent. We'll deal with the Flood, you carry on. And a bunch of elite drop pods come crashing down, and the elites immediately get to work slaughtering the Flood, because Artas has extensive history with the Flood and hates them to bits. That's how he lost his 2 mandibles on his left side. Okay, so we are done with the Flood, and we are on to Chapter 5. Welcome to the Core. So you guessed it, this is all about the UNSC. So, a brief introduction to the UNSC. The UNSC is the main militant and governing force of humanity in the Halo series. UNSC stands for United Nations Space Command, and there are many, many branches of the military that fall under the UNSC. Essentially, they all do. You have the Navy, you have the Marines, you have the Spartans, you have the Office of Naval Intelligence, or ONI for short, which are essentially the spies of the UNSC, or best example for real world would be like, the Halo equivalent of the CIA. Very shady organization. And everything in between. They are the governing factor on all of the human colonized worlds. There was an insurrection war where people were fighting against the UNSC prior to the Covenant War. But once the Covenant War started, that conflict quickly ended because the Covenant did not care if a human was a UNSC soldier or insurrectionist soldier or a civilian. They would kill you and glass your world into obsidian or glass regardless. So that conflict got swept under the rug. And in fact, the Spartans were actually created by Dr. Catherine Halsey as a way to finally snuff out the insurrection. So the Spartans were not made or intended for fighting the Covenant. In fact, the project's beginning was way before humanity even had first contact with the Covenant. And it was only after the Spartans had finally first deployed, or started to deploy, because keep in mind they were abducted and indoctrinated into the UNSC at the age of 6, that the Covenant War started. So they quickly swapped from being the end-all solution to the insurrection problem to the only real match between the UNSC and the Covenant. I apologize for stuttering so much in this video. I have been awake for 29 hours at the time of recording this. So yeah, let's continue. I've been really looking forward to getting into the UNSC. Very interesting, very cool. Definitely one of the best, in my opinion, depictions of the future of humanity. It's science fiction enough that it's believable that you could see, yeah, humanity could absolutely be like this in 500 years, while still keeping it relatively grounded, which I think Bungie did a great job balancing them out. So let's get started. Here is a picture of a, I believe this was a concept art for Halo 3 ODST. So what we have here is, start from the left and go to the right, we have a warthog with the gunner presumably on lookout duty or watch. We have a marine here, kind of looks like running about, and we have an ODST speaking to a marine. I'm assuming this marine is the commanding officer of these three, or at least the highest ranking member. ODSTs, we'll get into them a lot more in detail later in this chapter, but they were essentially humanity's elite soldiers before the Spartans, and the Spartans overshadowed them, and there's a deep, deep resentment between the ODSTs and the Spartans, but we will get into that when we get to the ODST section. So here's a little bit about the UNSC here, and we have a picture of a UNSC soldier with sleeveless, holding what looks like a light machine gun over his soldier. To me, this picture is very reminiscent of Vietnam era American soldiers. I might be wrong about that. I'm not American myself. I'm just basing that off movies that I've seen. So if I'm wrong about that, I apologize. I do not mean to offend anyone or disrespect anyone that served in Vietnam. Anyway, back to our fun Halo space opera. So, File Point 001, UNSC. They're the men and women at the front line of every battle. The soldiers facing war against an alliance of aliens in a fight for the very future of humanity. Good job, they've also got the hardware to back them up. Formed in the 22nd century, the United Nations Space Command is the military arm of the United Earth Government. And throughout the war with the Covenant is the one thing keeping humanity from extinction. In the Halo games, they're personalized by UNSC leaders such as Lord Admiral Hood. The thinkers such as Dr. Catherine Halsey, who is the one who created the Spartans, perhaps the most important, and perhaps most importantly, the Marines themselves, spearheaded by Sergeant Avery Johnson. Halo's a characterful game, and much of this character comes from the colorful backchat provided by the soldiers that are accompanying the player. I'm going to mention something about this when I finish this. Halo is also a game that reveals that its technology, and very much of this comes from the UNSC itself, whether it's the iconic battle rifle, a bounding warthog, or the Spartans themselves, the hardware supplied by the UNSC is often center stage. Now, what it says here, I was going to mention this, but since it says it here, I think I'll mention it now. It says, and much of the character comes from the colourful backchat provided by soldiers accompanying the player. What I really like about the Halo games, and all of the Halo games, regardless of what you think of each individual one, is that the Marines are all so varied. A lot of military games, you often feel like the Marines are like the same 3 dudes repeated. Halo Marines are extremely, extremely diverse. There's Marines of every race. You have white Marines, you have black Marines, you have Asian Marines, you have Hispanic Marines, you have Marines with different accents, such as, American, Southern American, British, Australian, South American, and also you have both men and women that accompany the player in the game. So it really does feel like that you are playing the game with an actual army rather than the same 3 guys. And also, what it says here is that about their firepower. One thing that's cool is that in terms of technology and vehicles and space combat, the Covenant absolutely has the upper hand. However, in ground-based battles, so like small skirmishes between squads of Covenant and squads of UNSC Marines and ODSTs, it's essentially even, which is really cool. So fighting on the ground is usually pretty even. But of course, the Covenant have a technological advantage and they have the numbers, because keep in mind, during the whole Halo conflict, humanity is just being depleted and depleted and depleted. So it's like, the Marines may win a bunch of ground battles, and this actually is in the opening cutscene of Halo Wars 1, where it shows that, the Marines were kicking the Covenant's ass on the ground, but then, the Covenant would just show up in orbit with a ship and glass the entire continent, killing everything. Their soldiers, our soldiers, animals, plant life, everything. So that's a bit more about the UNSC. Here's a picture of Master Chief and Cortana. Cortana is the AI companion of Master Chief. She goes through multiple different iterations in the game. This version here looks like the Halo 3 version, whereas this version looks like the CE version. This one looks like the Halo 2 version, and this version looks like the Halo 4 version. And I am just realizing I am probably going to have to censor this, because I don't think YouTube will accept the explanation that no, it's not a naked lady, it's actually an advanced artificial intelligence, where they just see booba and, demonetize, even though I'm not monetized, but, whatever. So here is a bit about Cortana herself. So sorry, I gotta move the text closer to the screen, closer to me. File point 002, Cortana. Throughout her quips, wit, and insight, Cortana is one element of the Halo universe that's almost as iconic as the Master Chief. She certainly rivals him in importance, if not more so, in my opinion. Having identified Spartan 1337 as her partner, because she had her pick of the Spartans and she chose John because he had luck. The AI steers him on the course that ensures his legendary status. saving the entire universe in the process, as her role is strengthening throughout the series. Cortana also provides the Halo universe with a welcome shot of humor and her relationship with the Master Chief. At times plays out like sci-fi Bogart and Baskel. Her strength is in her character and her unique design, making her one of the most positive female characters in games. Absolutely. And absolutely one of the most iconic female characters in games. She is voiced by the incredible Jen Taylor, who is an beyond amazing voice actress. But yeah, Cortana is really important. As important, if not more important, than the Master Chief in terms of saving humanity. Here it says Cortana is contained within the memory matrix, a contraption that's safely escorted to the Pillar of Autumn by Noble 6 in Halo Reach. So, how did Cortana come to be? She is what is called a smart AI. Smart AIs are created by using the brains of geniuses that have died and are then, I don't know the exact process, but they are turned into artificial intelligences. Now, Cortana is an exact replica of Dr. Catherine Halsey, but Catherine Halsey is alive. So you might be wondering, wait a minute, if these AI can only be made from, brains of dead people, how did Halsey make an AI of herself when she's still alive? That is because she cloned herself, which is essentially hyper illegal in the Halo universe, because clones do not live very long. They live for like a few weeks. So she cloned herself to get a copy of her brain, and then when the clone died, she used that brain to create Cortana. Catherine Halsey, we'll find out more about her later, but is very much a woman who believes that, the ends justify the means. Like, she's willing to do the absolute worst things possible, legally, morally, to try and help humanity prevail. And there's lots of mixed opinions about Catherine Halsey in the community. Some good, some bad, some in between. I'm not a fan of her, but that's just me. Characters. File point, I'm going to read this and then we'll go through who everyone here is. So, file point 003, characters. Cortana is a cast in the mold of young Dr. Elizabeth Halsey, the scientist who birthed the Spartan 2 program from which the Master Chief was born. One of the most complex characters the universe offers. Halsey is responsible for the atrocities committed in the name of the Spartan 2 program, with children torn from their parents and cold-heartedly turned into killing machines. She is in part also responsible for humanity's salvation. That's what I was just saying, that she does the absolute worst things imaginable, but it's without any shadow of a doubt that her work and her decisions, as awful as they were the only thing that stood between humanity and extinction in the long term. Other smart AIs would also feature in the Halo universe, perhaps most notably Halo War's Serena, who provided an alarmingly human presence on the UNSC Spirit of Fire. Like Cortana, wields a caustic wit. So all AIs get to choose what they look like. So Serena has a much more human looking appearance. There's a lot more art over here, some of them more modest, some of them less modest. I believe this is the final version that they went with. But she looks like a human, whereas Cortana looks like a woman made of code. Other AIs, such as Roland, who is the AI who is partially in command of the UNSC Infinity in Halo 4, and BB, or Black Box. His image that he likes to portray is a box, but not a black box, a blue box. And this is a source of many jokes within the Halo 5 trilogy. If you like Halo in any way, and have not read the Halo 5 trilogy, please read them. They are all on Audible, and the narration is great. They are some of the best Halo books out there, and they're not just good Halo books, they're actually good books. So here we have Dr. Catherine Halsey. This is some concept art, which is really cool. This is similar to how she appears in Halo Reach. Of course, during Halo Reach, she is much younger. Here we have Lord Admiral Terrence Hood, who is essentially in charge, or like the highest ranking officer of the UNSC military. So very powerful, very influential man. Here is Captain Keyes, a decorated naval captain who has won countless battles against Covenant. However, he does end up falling to the Flood in Combat Evolved. And this is his daughter, Miranda Keyes, another very decorated naval officer. The Keyes family have a tradition of all serving in the UNSC. It says here, Jacob and Miranda Keyes, left on top of right and all that stuff. Then Lord Admiral Hood. All heroes of the war display in the cool military style of the UNSC uniforms. The UNSC uniforms, say what you want about the UNSC, if there's any insurrection lovers in the comments, but the UNSC uniforms go ridiculously hard. So here we have some schematics and concept art of some weapons. So here we have the sniper rifle. This is the Halo, I believe this is the Halo Combat Evolved sniper rifle. I might be wrong, this might be the Halo 2 sniper rifle, but this looks like the Halo CE sniper rifle. Here is a bunch of different permutations of the assault rifle, which I think is so cool, seeing all these guns. I wish we got to use these guns in game. You know, maybe some could be more accurate, some could be more powerful, some could have a much lower rate of fire but do more damage and everything. Most of these appear to be concept arts. These two here, if you're familiar with real-world firearms, they kind of look like the PP Bijan rifle. This assault rifle here is very similar to the assault rifle featured in Halo Reach. And this assault rifle actually looks very similar to the Halo 4 battle rifle. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Here we have the Spartan laser, a weapon introduced in Halo 3 and has become one of the most iconic weapons in Halo. This looks like it's the Halo 4 Spartan rifle. The Halo 3 one is a lot more bulky and blocky. This one looks a bit more streamlined with the red accents. Here we have the Spanker rocket launcher. And we have the DMR, the Designated Marksman Rifle. So this weapon was introduced as in Halo Reach as an alternative for the battle rifles, since that was not featured. Plays very differently. I actually prefer the DMR to the battle rifle in Halo Reach, and in Halo 4 my go-to loadout is the DMR. So looking at what we have here, this one in the top left looks most similar to what we see in Halo Reach. And then these look more like concept art. Again, this one looks like a battle rifle. But yeah, I just think it's very cool. This one is the Halo Reach sniper rifle. I swear I know what this one is called. I swear it's like the S66 or the S96. I could be wrong about that. Here is what looks like a grenade launcher, which is not featured in any of the Halo games, which is unfortunate. There is a grenade launcher in the Halo games, but it's more of a EMP weapon that you use to, you shoot at the ground to bounce up towards an enemy's face and then explode. And also has the capability of EMPing enemy vehicles and friendly vehicles. And here is a sketch of a female Marine looking very, very badass, holding the grenade launcher. I think this is a grenade launcher anyway. If it's not, I apologize. Okay, here we go. Here's the real fun stuff, the Marines. So we're going to read first and then look at the pictures afterwards. File point 005, Marines. There may be more Space Marines in video games than there are stars in the sky. That's true if you're familiar with Warhammer. But it's Halo soldiers that shine the brightest. It was their varied and amusing backshot that helped mark out the original Halo combat evolved, and it ensured that the Marines that served by the player's side were more than just cannon fodder. They were believable human companions. That's what I was talking about earlier with how diverse the Marines are in these games. The Marines' look, and indeed the generic gung-ho attitude, are part of a long line that can be traced back to James Cameron's Aliens and the earlier fiction of Robert Heinlein and Joe Haldeman. Sorry if I butchered your name. It's to Halo's credit that its own Marines stand tall in such company. So, and that is true, the Halo Marines are heavily inspired by the Marines in the Alien films, specifically Aliens, the second one. So let's see what we have here. So we have 3 different Marines. This appears to be the same Marine in different uniforms. So this is like the most standard looking armor set. This one is more kind of unofficial, no sleeves, no helmet, but a bandana. This one again is just a very standard look. And this one has a bit of either these are grenade canisters or sapper charges on his chest, which I think is very, very cool. Here is a Marine who is fully decked out in his combat armor. This looks like a Halo 2 Marine based on their chest pouches. This here looks like a... I can't tell if this is a Halo 3 Marine or a Halo Reach Marine, based on the color of their armor. And here is another type of Marine. This guy looks more like a pilot based on his helmet, and he has a little microphone there. And then here are some of the grenade types that the UNSC uses, and the pistol. So obviously we only know the fragmentation grenade. I'm not sure what these grenades are. I wish we kind of got a little bit of an explanation saying what each of these are, but it's cool to see. Also, I apologize. I do not know what weapons this Marine and this Marine is holding. This Marine appears to be holding either a battle rifle or a DMR, but this guy looks terrifying. I would not want to mess with that man. Some more about the Marines. We have some concept arts of different types. This Marine looks more like a scout type of Marine. Over here we have, again, same Marine, different outfits. So we have your standard Marine. This looks more like a recon type Marine, you know, less combat gear, no helmet, bandana, all that stuff. This Marine looks kind of like a Special Forces Marine. He has the visor on his helmet, he has the balaclava. And then this Marine also looks very similar to the first one, except he has something on his waist. It looks like either a knife or a shovel or something. I can't really tell, but all of them look really, really cool. This picture here is great. So we have, what do we have here? We have a Marine, an ODST. That looks like another ODST, although his helmet... No, sorry, that's a Spartan. So Marine, ODST, Spartan, and then the Chief here. Now, the real good stuff. Spartans. File point 006. The Mjolnir armor worn by the UNSC super soldiers didn't just give them a fighting chance in the war against the Covenant, helped usher in a whole new era of gaming. That is very true. The rechargeable health that the armor facilitates soon became standard across the genre. If you guys would just like a little piece of video game history, there is a very, very great video on how Halo inspired modern FPSs even to this day, and it really goes to show, it goes in depth on what Halo added that became quintessential to the FPS genre. Two things that pop into my head is the reticle on the screen being a little bit lower as opposed to up high. Or maybe did I get that backwards? I can't remember. Also, simple stuff like grenades and melee having their own buttons, which it's like, if you didn't know that, it's like, what? It's like, there was a time when that wasn't the case, and and Halo was the one that did it, which is amazing. So there's so many tiny little details like that Halo started that have become the status quo for any FPS. So where was I? And the two weapon slot that it introduced fed directly into Halo's unique strategic gameplay. Again, Halo normalized the two weapon carry limit, because before this, it was all Doom, Wolfenstein, Quake, where you have, about 10 different weapons that you can swap to, whereas Halo made you choose between two weapons and grenades, which is cool. Then there's the Spartans themselves. The Master Chief may be the most iconic Spartan. The Spartan program kidnapped children, turning them into the ultimate killing machines. Combined with the power of the Mjolnir armor, the Spartans were an impressive force. Unlike their namesake, though few in number, they could provide the tipping point in a battle. I can't remember where this quote came from, but there was something in the Halo lore that it said, one Spartan is a force, 4 Spartans are an army. So, who are these guys? So, first up, we have Spartan Emil, who is one of my favorite characters in Halo Reach, if not my favorite character. I really like him. He has a shotgun as well as his assault rifle. He has his trademark skull mask, which he carved himself, and he is very proud of it. And he has his signature kukri here. I really like Emil's color design. The all black with the pop of red really, really goes well together. These two look like concept arts. This looks like a concept art for Noble 6. This looks like a concept art for George. So down here we have some different permutations of Spartans. They all have different types of shoulder pads, chest pieces, helmets, helmet accessories, and all that stuff. I believe everything shown here is an unlock that you can get in Halo Reach, except for this one. This one has like night vision goggles, which is weird. Like, why would you want night vision goggles when you have a helmet that already has night vision goggles? But, you know, I'll keep my mouth shut. So, here is a concept art for Noble 3 June. Also, I forgot to say, Emil is Noble 4. And these are all part of a Noble team in Halo Reach. So, Emil is the close quarters expert. He has an assault rifle, he has a shotgun, and he has knives, and he is extremely deadly with those knives. June, on the other hand, is the marksman prodigy. He is a sniper. During the mission in Halo Reach, where we play alongside June, June can often be heard talking to himself, which none of the other Spartans do. And this is because he is a sniper. He has spent so much time alone that he's gone a little bit mental and tends to talk to himself. It does not affect him in combat. He is extremely deadly. His specialty is long range, but don't let that fool you. If you come close quarters, he will absolutely body you. There's a scene, actually, you know what? I'm not going to say that because that's a bit of a spoiler. Here is George. George is a massive Spartan with a massive, massive chain gun. His armor is huge, tons of padding, tons of extra armor, heavy shoulder pads, a neck guard. And here is Noble 2, Cat. Cat is the demolitions expert of Noble Team. She, lost her arm and everything. If you've watched that Halo Reach trailer, where it shows the death of the original Noble 6, it also shows how Cat lost her arm after getting hit directly with a Banshee bomb. It says here, Spartans come in many shapes and sizes, and while the Master Chief is born from the Spartan 2 program, much of Halo Reach's Noble Team are Spartan 3s. I'll address this in a second. So again, we have some more permutations of Halo Reach Spartans. So, getting back to this quote. So, you might be asking yourself, Emil and June and Kat all look fairly, they're big for Spartans, don't get me wrong. They're all like massive. They would dwarf anyone. But they look very slim, very compact. Whereas George is this massive hulking unit who towers above his teammates in Noble Team. That is because all of Noble Team, so Carter, Kat, June, Emil, and Noble 6 are Spartan 3s. which I won't go into too much lore about that, but they're essentially a little bit less augmented than the Spartan 2s, whereas George is a Spartan 2. That's why he's able to wear this much armor, carry this kind of weapon, and still keep pace with the rest of Noble Team. So very, very cool. I'm torn between Emil and George as far as my favorites. Emil is the coolest in terms of his design, whereas George is the better character because George has a heart. George empathizes with civilians. He is a kind man and everything else. Whereas Emil, if a civilian looks at him the wrong way, he'll, put his knife through their eye. Noble Team. So here we have, who's this? This looks like Noble 6 here. This is Noble Team during the Fall of Reach. So we have Emil. I believe I don't know who that is there. And this is Noble 6 with some more permutations of armor sets and helmets. So let's read what this says. Halo Reaches placed a special emphasis on the power behind the suits, highlighting Halo's Noble Team. The characters of Carter, Kat, Emil, June, and George shone through the armor, but the star of the show was Noble 6. In an interesting diversion from a previous game in the series, Halo Reach allowed the player almost complete control over the main character with Noble 6, gender, and armor customization. What that means is your custom Spartan is who appears in the campaign as your Noble 6, which is really cool. Really just adds to that bit that like you are Noble 6 regardless. It's like whatever your armor is, that's you. That's Noble 6, which adds a load of cool stuff about Halo Reach. It's a feature that's been a part of Halo's multiplayer for some time, though its transposition to the single-player element of the game allowed for a stronger bond to form with the avatar. Exactly, that's what I was just talking about. Such customization also meant a wealth of assets would have to be produced to accommodate the various visual paths the player could take their character, below a selection of helmet concepts created for the game. So yeah, we have a couple here. This helmet here looks like the operator helmet with the night vision goggle upgrade. I'm trying to see if I can think. This one here kind of looks like pilot, but not really at the same time. Here we have the ODSTs. So, the ODSTs are my favorite soldier type in all of Halo. I love these guys to bits. I love everything about them. I have an ODST statue that just arrived. It was a statue of Book from Halo ODST. There were only 2,000 units made, and I got unit number 1994, so I ordered it just in time. I also cosplay as an ODST, so I will put a picture of it somewhere around here, just real quick. So, let's get on, let's read what it says, and then we'll talk about these beautiful, beautiful bastards. File point 007, ODST. Orbital Drop Shock Troopers is their official name, but the nickname Hell Jumpers is more fitting. The ODST are the 26th century's answer to the paratrooper, and the 20th century counterparts often the 20th century counterparts that often are the first in line when it comes to combat situations. Drop pods, or to be more specific, the single occupant exo-atmospheric insertion vehicle, say that 10 times fast, stand in for parachute. Here is some more information on starting on the UNSC's air power. So let's read what it says. File point 009, air power. Backing up the UNSC's ground force is its own impressive aerial support. Frigates, dropships, and also destroyers may darken the skyboxes with their incredible scale, like the Pelican opposite. But it's the likes of the Hornet and the Falcon that are the more likely to leave the indelible mark on the player. That's true. I adore the Falcon. It's probably my favorite UNSC vehicle in the game, and it's a shame that it is only in Reach. And yeah. Both these smaller aerial assault vehicles are drawn up almost in direct opposition of the Covenant's Banshee, in an example of the near interweaving and counterbalance that helps keep Halo's game of rock, paper, and Spartan laser in check. I love that. I've never heard that before, but I love it. Rock, paper, Spartan laser. Their designs, again, play into their function. For the Hornet, it's a more nimble machine that's put through its paces in Halo 3's mission, the Covenant. Quite true. While the Falcon's bulkier frame takes the player through the charred skies of New Alexandria, one of Halo Reach's many memorable set pieces. New Alexandria is an incredible mission in Halo Reach. It might actually be my favorite mission. I'm trying to think of all the missions in Halo Reach. New Alexandria is absolutely my favorite. I love it. It's not open world, but it's open-ended. And there's also a glitch that there's so many Easter eggs and glitches. There's a glitch where you're able to fly a Phantom and a Pelican. I won't go into too much detail. So here is a couple concept arts of the initial draft of the Falcon. The Falcon here is what we get in game. So the way the Falcon works, so we have the pilot who controls this gun, which is extremely powerful. I can't stress enough how powerful this is. There's also a version, sorry, that's something else. Here we have, it's hard to make out, so we have two gunner seats, one on either side. These can either be chain guns, similar to the one that George wields, or grenade launchers that are also capable of EMPing certain vehicles. It also has the capacity to carry 3 passengers, so one Spartan can sit here and 2 can sit here. So it's really good. Like if you're playing 4-player co-op, one of these things in New Alexandria can carry a whole team. And here we have the Pelican, the one of the most iconic vehicles in Halo, and I think in terms of science fiction dropships, I think it's an incredible design with the hatch at the back, that it's able to enter space, it's able to enter atmosphere, and so much more. Here is the Hornet, which is a mixture between like a helicopter and a jet. So the way it works in the game is you have your pilot who has the chain gun and the missiles, which are homing missiles. And then here on these kind of side bits, is where passengers are able to get on. There's another one on the other side too. So if you're playing the mission The Covenant, what you want to do is keep your Spartan laser and then give it to one of the Marines that jumps in the passenger seat. What's not in the game is this. This is a back turret area for the Hornet, which I think is so cool. I really wish that they had incorporated this into the game a bit more. This would have been an amazing bit, because as it is, if you're playing 4-player co-op, a Falcon can only hold 3, whereas if you had this, you would be able to hold 4. And you know what? We have passed the hour mark, so that is going to be it for this video. We have checked, and in the next video we will wrap things up fully with this art book. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your viewership. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Halo as much as I did about talking about Halo, because I will take any excuse to talk to anyone about Halo anytime. So yeah, this is probably my favorite Halo art book that I have. It's incredible. So this is the end of the video. So if you are listening to this video trying to relax or trying to go to sleep and listening to it to fall asleep, this is the end of the video. So I'm going to give you 5 seconds to click off before the ad wakes you up. Okay, then again, like I said, thank you so much for watching, and I apologize for stuttering so much in this part. It's part to do with my mouth just being dry from talking and being very sleep deprived. So I will see you guys in part 4, which will be the finale. And yeah, I genuinely love this. This is the book that I love covering so far anyway, as much as I enjoyed covering Bloodborne. So again, thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope everyone has a good evening or good night. Goodbye, and I will see you guys in the next one. Crimson out.